Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined this week by Dave and producer JL. John-Luc Shapiro is here as well. I am back from an extended hiatus. So excited. Dave, JL, good to speak to both of you this week as we are getting ready for round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The New York Rangers will be facing off against the, as we learned on Tuesday night, Carolina Hurricanes, probably the most anticipated, potential matchup for the Rangers. I think one that we all expected would probably happen this year. It is here. It is on the doorstep, and we're going to break it down for you in what amounts to a round 2 preview podcast. But we will also look back on the desolation, I'll say, of the Washington Capitals. Dave, JL, how are you guys feeling on a very spring May 1st as we record this show?
Well, Rob, it's nice to hear your voice again. I honestly forgot what your voice sounded like.
Me
It's
too.
been so long. You forgot what your voice sounded like? That's impressive.
I'm glad to be back. Trust me.
I'm feeling good. I walked the dog 3 times today. After we're done here, I'm going to crash and pass out, and I'm feeling good.
Wow, that sounds very 46-year-old.
Fuck off, JL.
No offense to any 46-year-olds, but I also just real quick, I think I recalled I didn't think you were as old as I thought you were. So take that as a compliment there. But I'm doing okay. I'm happy, man. It's first off, like Dave said, it's good to have you here again, Rob. Out of all the radio voices that we possess, Radio Rob C is, the kingpin here. Very happy about. You're welcome. Very happy.
I can't
about
believe
the
you
state of
got
the
Radio
Rangers,
Rob into the podcast. I can't believe you actually got to say that.
You know what? I'm a weird guy. Okay. And it's one of the reasons
he's latched onto that. He's latching on.
That's the reason why I'm single. But anyways, no, it's been good. I'm feeling good about the Rangers. I was at game 1 of the series against Washington. That was a madhouse, and I'll just say that it was nice to see Rempe score a goal in MSG for the first time. But I'm really happy about the Rangers. The Mets, not so much. But I'm doing all right, thankfully.
Well, hopefully they're a problem for June or even July if the Rangers go as deep as we hope they can. Look, I want to spend a few minutes to recap the Cap series, and thanks again, guys. You did a great job, holding down the fort while, I was unable to podcast for a couple of weeks there. So hats off to you as we closed out another season. We move on to the playoffs. Look, round 1 was what we all expected. Now, I will put my hand up right off the bat and say, oh, me of little faith, because in our blog predictions, I predicted Rangers in 6. And the reason for that is just the clear and obvious emotional damage that the Rangers have done to me over the last, let's say, 15 to 17 seasons, with long series after long series after long series after long series. It got to a point where I could not even picture them winning in less than 6 games, let alone completing a sweep. That said, when you look at the totality of the series, the Rangers were far and away, head and shoulders, unquestionably the better hockey team. The results were really never in doubt. They never really felt like they were under siege at any point. And to me, 4-0 was a fair result. And I don't think that there's really a good argument otherwise. But, and Dave, I want to start you off here because I'm just going to wind you up 3 minutes into the show. There was
I knew that you coming back. I knew you coming back would get me riled up. Perfect. I love it.
There was some chatter on Twitter where people were saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, well, they didn't really play that great, and Washington was the better 5-on-5 team in games 3 and 4, and blah blah. What are your thoughts on that? Because there was one prominent tweet. I don't want to mention who put it out there, but there were other folks in the community across the spectrum, by the way, from these sort of hot take artists in the old school sense into the analytics community, who were kind of pumping the brakes on Ranger dominance in the first round. What do you say to that?
So I'm going to first say something logical and then get into the rant, if that's allowed.
You could do whatever you want, man. Go. I'm
First,
excited to hear this, though.
it is okay to point out that the Rangers have room for improvement, and they do. 5 versus 5 play, specifically driving offense at 5 versus 5, because nothing is just as complete and such a thorough analysis as saying the Rangers need to be better at 5-on-5. Fucking elaborate, you schmuck. Holy shit. And there are people here that are guilty of this. I know I've done this shit myself where I say something and I never elaborated. And I realize that, and I try now. I don't always do it, but I try. But if you're going to say the Rangers don't deserve the sweep and they didn't deserve to beat the Capitals because of 5-on-5 play, elaborate more. What on 5 versus 5 did you not like? Was it that they couldn't generate offense? Okay, good. You have a point. Was it they didn't play good defense? You're wrong. Just look at the high danger chance numbers. They had one game where they allowed double digits. That was it. Was it that the Rangers couldn't generate any sustained offense? Again, a valid point. Counterpoint to that, when the Rangers actually got time in the zone on 5-on-5, they scored. So I don't really see what the fucking problem is. It was a sweep. Enjoy it. Get your head out of your ass. Get your head out of the spreadsheets. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth because I love the number. Just shut the fuck up. Enjoy the run. We had so much fun in the 21-22 playoffs.
Mhm.
God,
Yeah, 2
the
seasons
last
ago. Yeah.
good God, these years are merging together in my mind. We had so much fun ignoring all the numbers in 21-22 because they weren't supposed to be there. And hey, we enjoyed it. Now everyone's got expectations, and now everyone's like, they have to be this perfect fucking hockey team. The Carolina Hurricanes are this whole thing that people think are the perfect hockey team. They shoot 3% at even strength. I would rather shoot 9 and 10% at even strength with all the skill they have and get the goals that they need in the playoffs instead of worrying about whether or not we're at 51% expected goals or 48% expected goals. Who the fuck cares? Yes, it's just win, baby, but you got Igor Shesterkin in net, you got an elite power play, you got an elite penalty kill, and you're just good enough at 5-on-5 to survive. That's all they fucking need. Holy shit. Get over yourself. Even I was never this fucking egotistical when I was in my stats days.
Well, and so again, there were plenty of people out there that I think were not even coming at this from a stats perspective and just saying, well, it didn't, whatever, it didn't feel dominant, it didn't look dominant. I don't know. To me, I think the stat.
Dominant. Shut the fuck.
Well,
sorry.
I actually, and I would say I think that's wrong too, because I think it did. Like, look, I'm used to watching playoff games as a ball of nervous energy where I have to pace and I have to, self-medicate a little bit with I usually go 1 beer per period to kind of keep the nerves calm. None of these games felt like that. And not that they were walks in the park per se, but like they kind of felt like slightly intense regular season games. Like that's kind of what they felt like to me. And I was like, okay, they're probably going to make enough plays to win these games. So that was the feel of the series, right? And then, yeah, if you look at the numbers, 5-on-5, the Rangers were good in games 1 and 2, not as good in games 3 and 4, but it's not like they got their doors blown off. The Caps did not have more than 29 shots on goal in any game in the series. The Rangers only trailed for 3.5 minutes in the entire series across 4 hockey games, which is a very telling stat, in my opinion. Because that also, even with the score adjustments and all the stuff they do with the numbers, like that skews how you play, right? The Rangers are a team that is extremely well coached, detail oriented, and they manage the game really well. And this is where I think, you do have to take into account some of the non-stats related analysis, right? Look at how the team approaches situations where it's a tie game on the road, where they're up a goal on the road. And look, the best period they played in game 4 was the third period. It was a tie game. They got an early power play. They scored on said power play and they shut the game down. And they did not rely on Igor Shesterkin to shut it down. They kept the Caps completely out of his crease and the low slot and his field of vision. He made a handful of, let's say easy to medium to easy saves. And the Rangers got out of there with an empty net goal, 4-2, series over, handshakes, all that good stuff. So, I mean, listen, look, and we'll get to Carolina because there's definitely a few things about that series that do stand out to me, and we'll get to that in the in the next segment here. But I think the other thing, in JL, I want to hear from you on this as well, right? The other thing that I think people are overlooking is they've gone to a team level analysis too quickly here. And one of the reasons for true optimism, and I mean like Stanley Cup optimism, is how well some of the individual players played in that series. Mika Zibanejad was a force. I think he was the best skater. Keandre Miller was a force. He was the best defenseman in the series. Adam Fox had a quiet series, which is fine. Igor Shesterkin on top of his game. Artemi Panarin, no worries about his scoring. Alexi Lafreniere, 3 points. Vincent Trocheck, like probably actually, and I said Mika was the best skater, but honestly, and I know this is again too early, but why not? Let's be optimistic, right? Let's enjoy the ride. If I had to say who's the most likely Conn Smythe, right, of the top 3, I think it's probably Trocheck, Shesterkin, Zibanejad. Maybe you could flip Zibanejad and Shesterkin, but I think Trocheck right now would be number 1. He was the most effective player for either team in that series, and the Capitals had no answer for him. So I just named a bunch of names there, JL, but who jumped off the page individually to you in that series? Because I think that that's something that people have overlooked here when they, in their analysis of the first round sweep.
I'll say this, on top of those names that you mentioned, I think Artemi Panarin definitely showed a lot more prowess in the postseason that we've seen before with Columbus and even with Chicago. The big concern about Panarin going into the playoffs was he able to kind of turn it on in the second season? And although he didn't put up as many goals as we would like, he was still very noticeable out there. And give Vincent Trocheck credit. He was able to feed off a lot of that. And Panarin, he may not have had as many scoring chances as Zibanejad or some of the other guys, but like you guys alluded to, he was able to make the most of what he was able to do. I mean, they just looked phenomenal all around. Game 1, Panarin was all over the place, and it was awesome. That Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line game 1 was electric. And yeah, they might have been stymied a little bit more, but a lot of that did carry over onto the power play. And they just looked very strong as a unit. And Panarin, I really think, was probably one of the more overlooked guys. Granted, he only scored, 2 goals, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, well,
the whole series.
He got the series winner though, and I mean,
yeah, he did.
To add to that, JL, how about how he basically stood up for himself with the whole TJ Oshie thing in game 2? I mean, just so engaged, like played a very physical game, which nobody expected. The hit was clean, by the way. Oshie himself said so. This is, I totally agree with you. That's a side of Panarin that outside of the points was really good to see.
Right. And, we've had these concerns about him over the last 2 years, and rightly so. You pay him a decent chunk of money to try and produce, and this is what we pay him for. And it's not like he's never produced in a playoff format before. So it's nice to see that Peter Laviolette is really getting the most out of Panarin, as he should, and as the team should. Just to make a quick comment on what Dave was ranting about, and you're absolutely on point with that. How can you not say this was a convincing series win? You literally won the series in the least amount of games possible. How is that not convincing? I don't understand. Yeah, some things could be improved on here and there. Yeah, sure. But let's not forget the New York Rangers, after probably maybe the middle of the second round, played some of their worst hockey in the 1994 playoffs and still won the Stanley Cup. So it's not like everything's going to be roses and cherries and flowers and all that every single time. You have other teams that are getting paid millions of dollars to compete against you, especially with the playoffs. Everybody knows how crazy it gets, even for the worst team. They will bring their A game. And granted, the Rangers were able to squash the Capitals' A game, but come on. Are we really doing this? This is something I expect from Mets fans, but and I guess maybe it makes sense with a lot of Ranger fans being Yankee fans that are doing this. But just enjoy it, man. They look good. Playoff series, things differ, performances vary, but that's kind of the point. You played strong enough as a team, and some people are able to stand out, have breakout performances here and there, while the rest of the guys are able to carry the load. Come on, really. It's just. And then one of the things, I guess, maybe, Dave also mentioned this too. I guess one of the things too is that, you said that they didn't have as quote unquote strong 5-on-5 numbers that, they could have had, but they made the most of their opportunity and the small chances that they had. And then also you have to remember too, for the majority of the series, again, you mentioned the number that they only led for about 3 minutes and change.
They only trailed. Yeah.
The Capitals led about 3 minutes and change. You're going to defend for most of that time, especially with the way the Rangers scored. So that probably also had a say in how some of the numbers looked. But if I'm sitting down and I'm watching the game and the Rangers are limiting high danger chances and Igor is just making easy saves, it's like you said, Rob, even when I was in the Garden for that game, I didn't feel that sense of tension that I felt when I went to go see them play Pittsburgh, or when they played Carolina, or when they played Tampa Bay. It was more, okay, just how, when it all depends on when and how, more than what if. So I think people just need to get a grip.
And you know what pisses me off about these people? Let's remember, Carolina is a very good team. They're a top 4 team along with the Rangers, Florida, and Dallas. So the Rangers may not win this next series, and that's a legitimate possibility. If the Rangers lose to Carolina, this crowd of people is going to say, "See, I told you so."
Right.
Like,
that's for sure the motivation here. Setting themselves up so that they're right if the Rangers lose at all. Forget
I'd rather be
Carolina
wrong and win than right and lose. Sorry.
I couldn't agree more. No, listen, I couldn't agree more. I didn't know if you had more there. Look, it's also just, and this, we don't need to get into like a macro discussion about like instant reaction, like Twitter, like take culture, but like clearly like everybody just, it's the first thing people do. They like, if you're really looking for engagement and retweets and whatever, you're going to like say something controversial that is going to get people riled up. And I'm not saying, look, maybe some people genuinely feel that way. Look, we chat with Rob Luker all the time, and shout out to Rob. Hope he's doing great. Welcome to new baby, a few weeks back. So, I know we haven't had him on the pod a bunch, and he's sort of pared back his writing and stuff like that, but he still tweets, and, we still get to talk to him on a regular basis in our, Blue Seat Blogs group chat. And he has raised the concerns about 5-on-5 offense, not just this year, but even going back a couple of years, right? So this has been an issue. What I would say to that is, at some point, you have to accept who the Rangers are. The Rangers are, especially under Peter Laviolette. With Gallant, it was different because there was no discernible identity. It really was kind of like, hope and vibes, right? But under Peter Laviolette, they are an extremely well-drilled, detail-oriented, defense-first hockey team. And that's okay. Like, it's the reason they score is because they have such elite talent, and Laviolette knows, and I think Chris Drury knows, and this coaching staff knows, it's not about volume with them. It's about smart puck management and converting on high danger chances. And as you've said, Dave, winning the high danger chance battle, right? So, they are, other than the rush chances, which have been kind of an on and off issue all year, they are a very good to great defensive team. They just are. And like, I feel like people don't want to say that, but this is not a team that gives up 35, 40 shots. I mean, I think I tweeted this, or I said it in our group chat. It used to be the norm for most of the last 15 seasons, right? If you go back to AV's last couple of years, let's go back to AV. So that's maybe 10 years. Through the Quinn era, through the Gallant era, when the Rangers played a good team in a playoff series or in a desperation situation, even in the regular season, they were giving up 35, 40, 45 shots on goal. I mean, remember all the stats. Hockey Stat Miner would tweet this out all the time, right? Like Igor Shesterkin is now like 8-1 in games where he faces 40 or more shots, right? They were asking the goalie to do a ridiculous amount of lifting because they were giving up 35 to 45, maybe 50 shots on goal, 90 plus shot attempts. I mean, this was an assault on the Ranger net night after night in a big spot. That doesn't happen under Peter Laviolette. Just look at it straight up from a volume perspective. They don't give up as many attempts. They don't give up as many shots on goal. They don't give up as many high danger chances. So yes, is it annoying to look at a stat sheet and see, hey, Washington had 8 high danger chances and we had 6? Sure. But I think the Rangers will take that every day and twice on Sunday because of the goalie they have, because of the upper echelon talent they have, because of the power play, because of the penalty kill, which was so good that it scored as many goals as Washington's power play. So, and as you've pointed out, Dave, at least 20%, if not 25% of each game is going to be played in special teams. So yes, 5-on-5 is a concern. We want to see more offense. I think the second line outside of game one has a lot of room for improvement at 5-on-5, offensively speaking. But I mean, man, like let's just acknowledge what the Rangers are and buy into their identity, which is they know how to protect their net. They know how to set their goalie up for success, and they know how to score when they do get opportunities to score. It's a pretty good formula for a potential champion to me.
And to just build on that, because I know we're going to transition to the Carolina series, the way the Rangers play, which is allow shots from the point and the outside, clear the rebounds, clear the front of the net, don't allow high danger chances, don't allow rebounds, cross-ice passes, etc. Mm-hmm. Carolina's offense is almost entirely based off of point shots and crashing the net. At 5-on-5, I should say. At 5-on-5. That's half their offense is doing that and getting to the net. That's a matchup that the Rangers can exploit because if, and this is obviously a big if, they can play the home plate defense that Carolina needs off of those point shots, Carolina's not going to get much. In their 3 regular season games this year, Carolina won 2-1, they lost 6-1, and they won 1-0. The Rangers allowed 4 goals in 3 games.
Yep.
You do that in the playoffs, they're going to win.
Yep.
Period. It doesn't matter what they do on 5-on-5. If you allow 4 goals in 3 games, you're going to win the series.
Totally. And no, it's a great point, Dave. And so let's transition to Carolina. So I think where I want to start with this, and then I think we'll get back into some of that, the nuance with how Carolina plays, maybe a little bit of a wrinkle that Gensel brings, right? As now a member of that team. And he's supposed to be the guy that puts him over the top, but no, I think they're still who they are. The thing that jumps off the page to me and everybody else is that the Rangers are underdogs in this series, and they're not heavy underdogs, but I've seen on the sports books anywhere from plus 120 to plus 130, right? I think when the NHL tweeted it out, it was plus 126 for the Rangers to win the series, which, I don't know the math off the top of my head, but that's somewhere in the neighborhood of they have like maybe a 44 to 46% chance of winning the series, right? So Carolina is favored. It's not a coin flip either. It's not a 50-50 where both teams are like minus 110 or one's minus 105 and the other's minus 115. Like this is and sorry if I'm using too many gambling money line, lingo there, but basically what this means is the sports books and the odds makers believe that Carolina is the better team and will win the series 52 to 55% of the time. Dave, I'll start with you. How does that make you feel?
So I actually need to backtrack. I fucked up on the stats. The Rangers won 2-1, lost 6-1, and won 1-0. I need to get more sleep.
Right. Okay. But okay.
I don't know how I fucked that up. And the 6-1 game was January 2nd. So that was right in there. Igor couldn't figure out how to make a glove save moment.
Right. Yes. That was during the goaltending downturn. Yeah.
I was so focused on that. So how do I feel about them being the betting underdogs? Listen, as soon as I saw that the Rangers on DraftKings were plus 120, I put a $10 bet down.
There you go.
I thought that was great value. Even if it doesn't hit, it's great value that the President's Trophy winning New York Rangers are underdogs.
Right. Well, exactly. Well, and JL, so same question for you. Do you have any thoughts on the Rangers being underdogs in the series?
I think it's ridiculous, truth be told. Statistically speaking, we are the better team. So I don't understand how that's the case. And then more than likely, you're going to see all these pundits and analysts come out from insert publication here that are going to say that the Hurricanes are going to win in like 5 or 6. And, it's a possibility that could happen, but I've never seen such a team play so well throughout the season and still get looked at as like second rate. Like I'll just make a quick example here. You look at other teams like let's say Florida or even Toronto, who's half the team the Rangers are, and the media tends to kind of bloviate about them a little too much, waxing poetic that, oh, it's like teams of destiny, they're really good. And I'm not taking anything away because Florida is still a very good team. Carolina, they're still very good. Toronto, But then when the Rangers do it, you have people, from certain publications are like, well, they're good, but I'm thinking, what are we doing here? So to see that the Rangers are essentially, quote unquote, not favored against the Hurricanes, it just makes me laugh. And, Carolina could win the series. Who knows? But come on. It's not like, winning the President's Trophy and getting the most points and, for breaking franchise records for wins and, points is, a throwaway. I mean, any other team.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say they also have home ice. They have
Yeah.
home ice. So like
throughout the
and
whole
again,
playoffs.
right. And but even for this series specifically, right? So again, when you think about what that means, and I don't know how this is done, a lot of it is algorithms, but you'd have to think that the Rangers would be favored in their home games, but maybe they won't be. So I don't know. But like assuming the series goes 7 games, there are 4 Ranger home games and 3 Carolina home games. Usually when it's this tightly contested, the home team's going to be favored and the team with the better record is going to be favored. And so it's a little bit of an anomaly. I agree with you, Dave. I think it is very good value. If you are the betting type to place a wager on the Rangers to win the series, because I mean, you could double your money. So it's, listen, it's really, I find it interesting. Look, I do think this is one of those series where, and I know we often say this is just kind of a cliche at large when talking about playoffs and playoff scenarios, but this definitely has the feel of like whoever wins this series is probably going to go to, and if not win the Stanley Cup. Like not that I'm saying that, the winner will then walk all over Boston or Florida. Florida is certainly the most formidable, I think, of the remaining teams out of the Atlantic bracket. But this just has the feel of like, if Carolina is going to do it, it's probably this year. There's rumblings about Brendan Moore's future and kind of how ownership is acting, even though I think Don Waddell gave a public vote of like, no, like we're going to get Ron back. I don't know how that's all going to shake out. And I don't, in truth, follow Carolina that closely, but it feels they went all in on Gensel. Their core is getting older, right? This is something we talk about with the Rangers as well. The Carolina's had the same core roster for the last 5 or 6 years. Like these guys are not spring chickens anymore. So this definitely feels like a last chance for them. I think I think this Rangers team certainly has a team of destiny feel. This will be the equivalent of, and to use a 1994 comparison, this to me will be the equivalent of the Devils series from the 94 run, where very similar scenario. The Rangers were the President's Trophy winning number 1 seed. The Devils were the number 2 overall team in hockey. They were right on the Rangers' tails all year. The only reason they didn't finish in front of the Rangers is because the Rangers swept them in the season series. But obviously that was a 7-game epic war of a hockey series that many consider the best ever played. I don't know that this one will hit those levels, but this to me is the marquee series. This is the hardest series for the Rangers potentially in their run. I really believe that. And I think if they get through this round, they're going to do it. It's just a gut feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, anything can happen in the conference final and the Stanley Cup final, but this just has that feel to me, Dave. I don't know if you agree, Dave, but that's how it feels to me.
Florida scares me. Because
Yeah,
Florida has the goaltending that can match the Rangers. They're the only other team left that has the goaltending that can match the Rangers.
It's a fair point.
But, well, I shouldn't say that. Boston does too, but Boston, famous last words, Boston doesn't scare me.
No, they don't scare me either. I'm with you though. They just have felt like frauds all year, and whether that's the OT losses or their lack of 5-on-5. I mean, they profile very similar to the Rangers too. They are not a very good offensive team 5-on-5. They lean heavily on their top guys in a power play and their goaltending. So it's they're kind of like Rangers light. That's why I think neither of us are afraid of them.
Fair enough. The last time we recorded, I went on a rant about how I hate the 1994 comparisons, and you just threw one out there.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not. I'm going to take it as you choosing violence.
Wasn't. Sorry.
It's all good. I'm just fucking around. It's funny. I can see either team sweeping this series. I can see this series going 7. I can see this series going 33. This series, I'm also sick of facing the Hurricanes. So maybe it's that, and I just don't know what to think about the Canes anymore. But the lack of goaltending, consistent goaltending, I think will be exploited by the Rangers. I think that's going to wind up being the difference maker, because we've already seen the Rangers can and will beat the Hurricanes. They will neuter their offense for at least a couple of games. I think goaltending will be the downfall of the Canes this series if they lose.
Yeah, and no, that certainly is a huge edge for the Rangers. I brought him up a little
I forgot the injury to Brett Pesce.
Yes, although it seems what was reported today or on Wednesday, you're listening to this on Thursday, is that he is expected to miss games, but should come back at some point during the second round. So he's not like out for the year or anything.
Yeah, well, they have to win the games that Tony DeAngelo is on defense.
Yeah, for sure.
They have to.
And if
it's like the games that Dylan McElrath was on defense, you have to win those games.
Yes, and there were 4 of them, and they won them all.
Yep.
I did want to ask. I want to get your take first, JL. I think the one player that does scare me, because he is a departure, right, from the normal Canes style and approach and thing, is Guentzel, right? So they emptied the bank account. They went out and got Jake Guentzel. He scored a zillion points after the deadline. You know, he was a perfect fit, and everybody was raving. I think he started on some ridiculous streak where he was on the ice for like 18 goals for and none against. It was just this absurd hot streak that happened right when he got to Carolina. And I think he does add an element of skill that they've been searching for. Look, I remember pretty clearly Rod Brind'Amour, after losing to the Rangers 2 years ago, said in the press conference, like, we just need a shooter to make a shot, right? Like, we need a skill player to make a skill play. And their guys did that. Like, they had enough game breakers and top end skill in their lineup. And so they go out and get Guentzel, right? He's like, kind of feels like the missing piece for them. Do you think he is a missing piece for them? Will he make a big difference for Carolina?
He might make a small difference, but not a huge difference, because again, the Hurricanes are a very system-oriented team, and you have to remember too. And I'm not taking anything away from the guy. I mean, I'll be honest. I did want him to come here. Obviously, I think
we all did.
Yeah, and we all know the gravity of the type of player he can be in a playoff series, and then maybe he shuts me up and actually proves me wrong. But a lot of what made Guentzel good with Pittsburgh was him playing with Sidney Crosby. And, again, not to fully take away, Sidney Crosby is probably one of the best to ever do it. And Guentzel definitely did benefit from that. I don't see anyone on Carolina that could potentially replicate that, so to speak. He did look good in that series against the Islanders, but then again, it was the Islanders. So I am curious to see how Gensel does at an extended tour of duty against the Rangers because of how the Rangers play and how the Rangers can neutralize that offense. One player that really stands out to me, though, is Sebastian Aho. He I think is probably low key, probably their, he is their best player to me, truth be told.
Yeah.
And I think that he can really make a difference in terms of just putting in that goal when he needs to. He's also a stupid good passer too. I drafted him for fantasy hockey last season. I finished second to another one of our members, and he just I paid attention to him more than I would normally, and he really is probably the one that they'll have to look for the most because he plays down the middle. He has a little bit of an edge to his game. Obviously, we saw him, sticking his leg out against Adam Fox, but Fox is a diver, quote unquote. And he just kind of has that little bit of an edge to him. So if Aho can get a guy like Gensel going on the man advantage, or just even in general, if they're paired together, then I think that will probably be the make or break type of thing outside of the goaltending.
Yeah, Dave, I'll get your thoughts, but I'll just very quickly say Gensel scares me, and he absolutely murdered the Rangers in that Pittsburgh series a couple of years ago. I mean, he could not stop scoring. He scored like every one of their goals, it felt like. So I'm scared of him. Again, sure, he was playing with Crosby, and yeah, you're getting just grade A look after grade A look, especially the way the Rangers were an absolute tire fire in the neutral zone for the first 4.5 games of that series. I mean, I remember like it was a free skate down the middle and into the high slot the entire series. Like it was absurd to watch. And like that was truly like oh man, like Gallant really doesn't know what he's doing, does he? Because like he cannot stop this. It was insane to watch. But I'm scared of him. Dave, where are you on Gensel? And then we'll get to some questions here and continue the Carolina breakdown.
So assuming we get appropriate matchups, and that's something that we haven't really talked about, and I guess we'll have to talk about another time, is how Laviolette's going to match up against Gensel, and how Filipino fits into all of this, and how Matt Rempe fits into all of this. If we assume the Wenberg line, whichever line that may be, gets Gensel, and I think that's a fair assumption to make, I'm not that concerned.
They were incredible in the Washington series. The Wenberg line was, and they only scored the one goal off of the turnover. Kakko smashes one home 57 seconds into game 4. But they were awesome. I mean, and again, talk about an appreciation of, or maybe a lack of appreciation of just incredibly sound 3-zone hockey. They're extremely well coached. They execute. Again, that line is just, it's a joy to watch, really, even if it's not pretty and it's not resulting in goals. So no,
it doesn't have to result in goals. If you shut down Jake Gensel and you shut down, it's Gensel and Aho on that line. If you shut down that line, the Rangers win in 4. Carolina cannot score enough to keep up with the Rangers. If Wenberg and Kakko specifically, Cooley is a great addition to a great compliment on that line, but it's Wenberg and Kakko. If those two are successful with whichever pair, I think it's Miller Schneider that's getting the shutdown minutes now. If they're out there with Miller and Schneider, and Aho and Gensel get 3 goals combined in the first 4 games, the Rangers have won the first 4 games. And that's not to be disrespectful to the rest of Carolina. That team can score. But if you're shutting down their top line like that, and you couple that with the way the Rangers are playing defense and the way Carolina generates their offense, Carolina's not going to score, period.
Well, and Igor,
if you shut down that line, period.
Goes without saying, but Igor behind the defense, right? So any breakdown, you're making him make easy saves. Yeah, listen, I think that's going to be fascinating to watch. I think the matchup thing is, maybe we can get into it as an answer to one of the questions here, because most of them are kind of geared towards the Carolina series. But obviously, goes without saying, you can get the matchups you want more readily and easily in your home building. You have to be a little bit more creative on the road. I think you got to keep some things in your back pocket. And I trust Peter Laviolette to do that. So with that, JL, if you want to hit us with some questions, we'll dive into that for our next segment here.
All right. Questions. Ding dong. You know.
You'll come up with a transition next season.
Sorry, I had something in my head, then I drew a blank because I'm getting old. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so
What the fuck?
sorry. All right, so we got some questions, and this first question comes from our own Mr. Tyler McGillick at Tyler Richard 93, and this is a really good question, and I'm curious to explore this topic. It's, when does Heedle draw into the lineup?
Game 1.
Wow.
You think so?
I don't.
Yes.
No, I don't think so either.
Game 1. So this is me going full tinfoil hat. Heedle was doing rotations on line 1 as a diversion. Laviolette said he's going to be coy with his lineup. He's not telling anybody what's going on. Heedle will play game 1. I don't think it's going to be at the top line. I think he will be a third line center, but that's just me tooting my own horn and my own prediction. I think he plays game 1.
So I'm going to go safer. And I don't, by the way, I don't think that that's tinfoil hat, Dave. Like that is well within bounds. That's a totally realistic scenario, but I will just, I think there's a superstitious thing with hockey coaches. I think that there is a comfort level with the players when they know what the lineup's going to be. I think he sticks with the same lineup in game 1, and then Heedle enters the series after whatever the first loss is. So I don't think they're going to wait. I don't think it's going to be a panic move. I think a lot of people have, sort of speculated that this will be a panic move, that it's and even Vince Mercogliano, I think he said, it'll be a break glass in case of emergency scenario. I don't think that's right. I think he comes in after the first loss. I think that's the easiest switch to make. Rempe comes out. Wenberg drops down, or Cooley drops down, but they wouldn't put Heedle on the wing. But I agree with you, Dave. I don't think they'll put him on the top line. Unless the top line goes completely into the tank, and that would really be more of a Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider problem than a Jack Roslovic problem. I'm also this is a hot take probably, and I think Roslovic was good. He's fine to good in the series. The top line was good overall. He scored a couple of goals. I know one of them was into an empty net. But that line benefits from his ability to transport the puck. And I've said this, and again, I don't think people hear me, and that's fine. No one needs to listen to my crap. But he can pick up the puck and skate it 3 zones. That is an invaluable skill to have. Zibanejad can do it too. So now you have 2 guys on the line that can do it. And if you have to dump it in, Kreider's got the speed to go chase down a loose puck. The way that line is constructed works really well. Roslovic has good offensive instincts. He just needs to clean up his execution. That's really it for me with him. So I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority there, but I like Roslovic on that line. I think you're only putting Heedle there. That's the break glass in case of emergency move, right? So I think Heedle comes in after the first loss in the series, whenever that may be. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all. Or maybe it's after the Rangers go up 3-0, whatever. But I think the emergency scenario is putting him on wing in the top 6, and that would be part of a wider shuffling of lines, which I hope we don't have to deal with.
I'll have to agree with you on that. You basically took, I don't know if you're reading my mind or not, but you actually took the same thought right out of my head. I don't think Rempe comes out immediately. I was going to say maybe game 4 that Heedle would come in, because I think what Laviolette might want to do is see how Rempe does at home ice against the Hurricanes, and maybe give him one shot of him playing in Carolina, because truth be told, it just to slightly go back to the Capitals players post series thoughts, they basically alluded to the fact that they were scared when Rempe was on the ice, and that really causes defensemen to kind of, pause. And I think, like you said, hockey, coaches and all that, it's very, superstitious. So I think they're going to go, like you said, with the same lineup. But in the sense that whether it's the first loss or maybe on game 4, I think he does slot in third line center. gives a little more offense with Kako and Cooley, and then Wenberg obviously plays the shutdown, moving Barclay Goodrow to wing and making him a little bit more effective. It just honestly really depends on how effective Rempe can be in his small minutes. So I think that's, for me, I think that's what it boils down to.
Can I go
Yeah.
off on a tangent if we don't have any questions about Rimpey or Heedle's place in the lineup? I haven't seen the questions, so
Let me just check. I don't
think
think
there's one
so.
more about Heedle. I think there is I think there might be something about his place in the lineup, but not about Rempe, I don't think.
okay. So one thing on Rimpey, and actually it's multiple things going to wrap up into one rant on Rimpey. I love Matt Rempe. I love his style of play. There are two things, though, that just kind of piss me off about people's analysis of him. First, he's not a fight. He's not, yes, he fights, but he's not just some fucking goon that's going to go out there and run everybody. His hits, yes, he needs to learn how to control his body. That's a problem. But he's not going out there with the intent to injure, like Tom Wilson going out there and bear hugging Adam Fox and ragdolling Artemi Panarin. Tom Wilson is a fucking punk. Matt Rempe, at least, when he has to go out there, he's not targeting people. He's not targeting best players. He's just trying to play the game and needs to learn how to control his body. That's a problem, which leads into he has a reputation, unfortunately, that he can't control his body. And if he's going to start taking 2-3 penalties a game, he has to sit. The refs are targeting him. And that has nothing to do with Heedle, nothing to do with Brodzinski. It barely has anything to do with Rempe. It has to do with the refs. If they will target him for clean hits, he has to sit. And it's not anything to him.
No, well, the one that they called right in the first minute or two of game one was completely targeting like that. It was a clean hit. That was ridiculous. Like that was a clean hit. It wasn't even that hard a hit. It was the puck was there. It met all the criteria for a clean legal hit, and they called him for it. I'm on the fence about the Van Riemsdyk one. I mean, it was a touch late, but it was a clean execution of a hit. Like he didn't. It wasn't an elbow or a shoulder to the head.
It was a 2-minute penalty.
Yeah, and right.
And so, it was late.
Yeah, and even some guys, I think that more err on the side of like, oh, this, should be a tough guy sport. Like they even said, maybe it's not that late. So even there was some split opinion about that. But no, listen, Dave, I'm with you. Like the little bits of stress I had watching the Capitals series were almost all tied to like Matt Rempe taking a penalty, because I'm like, oh man, like they're in control of the game otherwise, right? And the Capitals, I know for the full season had a bad power play, but I think MSG showed the stat they were like top 5 in the league after the All-Star break. Ovechkin did start going, obviously not in the Rangers series, but at the end of the regular season scored a lot of power play goals. So look, I mean, it's another level with Carolina. You can't do it. Carolina is also a much faster team. They're going to make you pay if you take a penalty. I also he does have a little bit of a penchant. And I think this has to go, or it goes to what you were saying, Dave, about his need to learn, right? His learning curve. Like he does a little bit of the Tanner Glass thing where he takes himself out of the play to seek a hit. And I don't like that. It's one thing if you arrive at the same time as the puck and the defenseman on a forecheck and it's a one-on-one situation and you are separating man from puck with a big hit. That's awesome. Even the TVR thing, even if it's not late, right? Even if that hit on Trevor Van Riemsdyk is not late, Van Riemsdyk gets rid of the puck. You are then out of the play and you've left your team in a lurch. You're not in your shape, right? You're not in your 2-1-2 or your 1-3-1 or whatever it is. So everybody's then got to cover more ice. And that's how you give up rush chances. That's how you give up prime scoring chances. So to me, it's as much of a discipline to the system thing as it is a penalty discipline thing with him. And that's why I think, again, we'll see him until the Rangers lose, and I'm sure they're going to lose a game in this series as much as I don't want them to. And then I think he's probably done for the playoffs. So, but I do expect to see him in game one. And I do think, on the positive side of the ledger, and like you were saying, JL, like he juices the crowd up. He does put a little bit of fear in the other team. His own team loves him. And he does have decent offensive instincts when he does get in the offensive zone. The other thing, Dave, is that line was by far the worst in terms of high danger chances against. They got outchanced badly for the series against Washington after game 1. So, I know we know Laviolette looks at that stuff and takes it into consideration. All right, let's go to the next question. Yeah.
All right, next question. This comes from Cat at Caccioli25, and he says, "Do you guys believe the Rangers can dictate the game at 5v5 versus Carolina?" And he also says to keep up the great work. Love listening to the pod. Thank you very much, at Caccioli25. We appreciate your question and the nice words.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start and I'll say no, not for long stretches, because nobody dictates the play against Carolina 5-on-5. They have been for the last, I don't know, 6 seasons, the best team in the NHL in terms of shots and chance generation. Like, that's just what they are. It's a volume approach. I mean, look, that Islander game where they trailed 3-0 and came back to win. They had 110 shot attempts. The Islanders had 28. Now that is
wow,
certainly on the Islanders. Like, you cannot let a team do that to you. That said, when Carolina is at their best and most desperate, they can do that. They can approach that level of 80, 90, 100 shot attempts towards your net. So to me, the Rangers don't play that way. They don't want to play that way. Will they have long stretches in the offensive zone? Yes. When they are down in a game or down, maybe down in the series and needing to come back, you will see a desperate version of the Rangers that I believe will be able to carry play for stretches of time. But no, I mean, look, at the end of this series, whether the Rangers win or lose, Carolina certainly is going to be the team that dictates play 5-on-5. I just think, to Dave's point earlier, and I'll let you pick it up, Dave, or, if you agree or not, but it may not matter because the Rangers are very good at defending the types of plays that Carolina likes to attack with.
Yep. And I was going to ask what the definition of dictate play means.
Good point.
Because if you're talking dictate play as in have the expected goals and Corsi share or have over 50%, no, it's not going to happen. I mean, we should just accept that now. It's not going to happen. Right. But if we're talking high danger chance share and dictating play that way, yes, the Rangers can and may dictate play there. If we're talking power plays and special teams, yes, the Rangers will dictate play there. If we're talking 5-on-5 defense, the Rangers may dictate play there. But if we're just talking Corsi percentage, XG percentage, no, they won't. So there's a lot of inputs to this that unfortunately get lost in blanket stats that people rely on. So it really depends on what kind of question you're asking here in terms of dictate play.
Yeah, I also think, I'm trying to think of this in terms of like, what will it look like if the Rangers are having success? And to me, it means that Carolina is maybe 1 and done or 2 and done, right, in the offensive zone. So they're not having those shifts where, like, oh God, Schneider and Miller have been out there for 1 minute and 48 seconds, and Carolina's had, 8 shot attempts in a row, and there's a broken stick on the ice. Like, how many of those like disaster shifts can you avoid having? Can you get out of your zone quickly? And then, look, when the Rangers are very good at, when they do get the puck in the offensive zone, maintaining possession. They're a very highly skilled team. They pass the puck extremely well. The defensemen move down the boards. They get a forward rotating up high. They try to get one of their skill guys, receiving the puck kind of high near the blue line and being able to attack downhill down the middle. They'll do that. Like, they will definitely have stretches where they're able to do that against Carolina. They just don't shoot the puck as much as Carolina. So to your point, Dave, they're probably not going to out attempt them 5-on-5, but can they break even in high danger chances at 5-on-5? I think so. And I think that will mean that they are playing very good, efficient defense in their own zone, and they are blocking a shot, or Igor's just gloving a shot from the point, and then they're getting out on the next faceoff. So we'll see, but yeah, I don't expect the Rangers to win the Corsi battle and win the XG battle throughout the series.
Well, you guys basically took the thoughts that I had, so I'm not going to, it's not worth repeating because I basically agree with everything you guys said. I don't think numbers wise they'll probably put up the same type of numbers, or maybe I guess maybe control the game in terms of like just completely pinning them down. But if it even gets to halfway or even slightly under, and then if the difference is going to be the special teams, I think that's what's going to end up propelling the Rangers. And then this is only purely on offense. So that's just my quick thought on that. So, All right, next question. This comes from @Spozo211. His name is Kevin, and he asks, was there any player you thought had a poor first round?
Dave, you want to take that first?
Any player that had a poor first round? See, now I'm racking my brain. I don't think so. So if you ask this question on Twitter, everyone's going to say Jacob Trouba because that's the fun answer to give. But I don't think he had a bad series.
No, yeah, I don't think he did it. I thought he had a good series, actually.
No,
Yeah.
same, actually.
I think he's been great in his new role.
Yes.
And he's accepted it well.
1,000%. I think his limited ice and slightly easier matchups he's been excellent. I have no problem with him. I think one guy had a rough game 4, so that's very recent, but Jimmy Vesey had a rough game 4. And as I alluded to earlier, that line did get out chanced badly, the Vesey Goodrow Rempe line in games 2, 3, and 4. So, but I'm not going to nitpick Jimmy Vesey, who's been nothing but a solid contributor to this team for the last 2 years. He's a perfect depth piece. He's pots, 10, 11 goals a year. He's probably going to come up with a big 1 or 2 in the playoffs, the way Barclay Goodrow did in round 1. So, and Rempe as well. So, I don't want to pile on Jimmy Vesey here, but he was the one guy that came to mind for me.
Well, he did score in game 1. So that was.
Oh, he did. That's right. That he did have a goal, right? That weird deflected shot off the face off.
Yeah, the one off of the mask of Lindgren. But I do concur with Jimmy Vesey. I'd also say Erik Gustafsson. He wasn't the worst, but out of all the defensemen, he was the one that kind of, looked a little hemmed in with Trouba. And it's really more Gustafsson than it was Trouba. He wasn't terrible to where, it was like, a big cause for concern, but he could have been a little bit better in the matchups that he had. And he seemed slightly overwhelmed in many aspects. And I don't know. I just didn't think he didn't stand out as much. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just purely all going off of the eye test, but I just thought he could have possibly been better.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, JL. And I think, I thought he was very good in game 2 and he had those 2 assists, but I think games 3 and 4, again, we were talking about this earlier with, you can't get the matchups you like. So, I think Spencer Carberry got his top players out there against Trouba and Gustafsson. And look, let's be honest, right? Even with Trouba playing better and Gustafsson being pretty reliable, that's the defensive pair you're going to hunt for matchups if you're an opposing coach. So, and you have last change at home. So yeah, I think that's a fair point, JL. He did struggle when faced with tougher matchups on the road in games 3 and 4. I think that's a totally fair assessment.
Right. So that's my go-to for that, and just one quick thing before I guess Dave Pitt gives an answer is I don't think that's going to last. I think Gustafsson matches up a little bit better against Carolina, just in terms of his play style. Same for Trouba. I know Trouba didn't have a bad first round, but I just think that pair fits better with Carolina than it does with Washington.
Right. And Dave already answered. He said no one, which is a good answer.
Already answered.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Nobody wants to hear from me again.
Sorry, I was looking up numbers, so my apologies on that. All right.
Another stats guy over here.
Oh, yeah, I know. Biggest dork in the room.
One of us.
All right. This next question comes from Hockey Night on B-Way @HockeyNGTBWI. And he says, how will Coach Laviolette counter the system of the Canes?
There you go, Dave. That's what you were waiting for, though.
All right.
Give a little matchup or breakdown or systems breakdown here.
All right. So we did the systems breakdown once already, but I'll run through that quickly before getting into the line matchups because that's more Laviolette's style that we haven't seen from a head coach in a while. Carolina's offense is almost entirely based off of point shots and getting to the net. The Rangers are very good at clearing the home plate area and limiting high danger chances against. Whichever team executes better is going to win out in the Rangers defensive zone. Other than that, the other piece that concerns me about Carolina is they are very aggressive on the forecheck. It's a very aggressive. Oh God, they rotate between a 2-1-2 and a 1-2-2. I'm not entirely sure of their game situations there, but they're aggressive. And we saw against the Caps that the Rangers defensemen in particular had a lot of trouble moving the puck when under duress. Mm-hmm. So if I'm Rod Brind'Amour, I'm getting two guys in. I'm focusing on that 2-1-2 and forcing the Rangers to make that home run pass or to just glass it out and turn the puck over, basically. This is not ironically, but this is funny enough where Chytil comes into play because most breakouts, the center is F1 on the breakout. He's the one closest to the defenseman. He's their outlet. Chytil is a great puck mover. He's great defensively. He doesn't take anything away from, say, a third line role where you still need a bit of defense as well. So that's where having Chytil at center really helps the Rangers, is he's that safe option that can still move the puck up if Carolina over pursues.
Mm-hmm.
That's from just an on-ice system standpoint. Carolina's going to be aggressive. They're going to get shots from the point. The Rangers have to clear the front of the net. From a matchup standpoint, we already covered whichever line Wenberg's on, be it Wenberg, VZ, Goodrow, or Wenberg, Cooley, Kakko, whatever it is going to get the Aho line. That's just facts. They're going to get the Aho line. Now, I believe their second line of Stahl, Turbo, and Jarvis is their de facto defensive shutdown line. Where's Jesper Fast in all this, actually? Is Jesper Fast not playing anymore?
He's hurt, yeah. He's injured. He's probably going to... I think he's going to miss the whole playoffs.
Oh, that sucks. I mean, that sucks for him. I love Fast, but that's great for the Rangers.
Yes.
I would assume Stahl, Turbo, Jarvis are their shutdown line, their version of the Wenberg line. And I'm going to guess they're going to try to get them out there against Panarin. So that means in the home games, Laviolette's going to try to get Panarin out against the Kuznetsov line.
Yes.
Because you got Kotkaniemi, Kuznetsov, and Nation. Nation is probably their best defensive player on that line, and that doesn't say much. Kuznetsov and Kotkaniemi are... Wait, am I getting this wrong? Is Kotkaniemi terrible offensively or terrible defensively?
I think he's terrible offensively, but okay. Kuznetsov is truly
horrible.
He's like one of the worst defensive players remaining in hockey.
Yeah. So so I kind of screwed that up with Kotkaniemi, but Nation, Kotkaniemi are wingers. They're not going to help much on defense. Kuznetsov is the guy at center you want to target. That's the Panarin line. Then this is where it gets a little iffy. If Chytil is your third line center, you got Cooley, Chytil, Kakko. That line will eat against Jack Drury's line.
Right, and who is that? Drury, Martinook, and who else is on that line?
Drury, Martinook, and Nietzsche.
Right. Yeah.
Which means the fourth line gets, in a perfect world, the fourth line gets the Stahl line, whatever. Yeah. Yes, the fourth line would get the Stahl line. Zibanejad would get the Stahl line.
Yeah.
That's fine. I forgot about Zibanejad. I don't know how, but I did. When in Carolina, expect Stahl to get Panarin, expect Aho and Gensel to get away from Wenberg, and all these little shell games start happening again. So that's what I'm expecting from matchups. I don't think Laviolette is going to focus too much on defense pair matchups outside of Schneider, Miller getting critical high pressure minutes.
Yeah. I'm really interested though, because and look, this may be a function of Adam Fox's knee, which probably wasn't 100% and is now less than that because of that hit that he took in game 4. You know, he played through it, but he took a maintenance day at practice for the Rangers on Wednesday. We've seen him wearing a brace. It's in all the videos that the Broadway hat videos that they post on social after each game. The knee's not 100%, and everybody knows it. So I wonder if that's the reason Laviolette has kind of smoothed the minutes out and not relied on Adam Fox a ton. Because look, I mean, at the end of the season, right, and maybe before the knee started acting up, Fox and Lindgren were excellent. I mean, they had really refound their form that made them one of the elite pairs in the NHL. And that's Lindgren included, right? Lindgren had a tough year, but his numbers rebounded somewhat the last 10, 12 games of the year. And I was like, oh man, like they're really cooking with gas now if they have that pair going and they can just be a true top pair. You have Miller and Schneider for the shutdown thing. You have Gustafsson and Trouba to do everything else. I hope Fox is healthy, because to me, that makes such a difference if you can, rely on that pair and you have the Miller. You basically have 2 shutdown pairs at that point, but you also have the Fox pair, which can contribute offensively. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little concerned there. And I wonder how the Fox injury and how that deployment works out as we get into the series.
All right. So now our final question comes from at msilvers1979, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but we can quickly rehash it. Is this a series against Carolina where you think keeping Rempe in the lineup is the best course of action?
Yeah, we did touch on it, but look, I love the guy. I think he has a future here, which is saying something for a player of his style. To your point, Dave, he's not a goon, but he's obviously a physicality first fourth liner. I want to see him at home. I really do. I want to see him at home in a game against a team with this speed. If he proves to me that he can keep his discipline, and again, I mean that not only from a penalty perspective, but also from a dude, just get your ass into the 1-3-1 where it's supposed to be, or into the 2-1-2 where it's supposed to be. Time your forechecks the right way, get to the front of the net the way you did on your goal in game 1. If he's doing things like that, then I'm fine with him staying in. I do think it reaches a point where if Philip Hedl is healthy, and this is look, he would not have come back to New York and skated with the team and he's take rotations with the starting lineup, right, if he wasn't going to play at some point. So at some point we're going to see Philip Hedl, and that will most likely spell the end for Matt Rempe, which is fine. But let's see how he looks in game 1. That's my answer.
So I am not concerned with Rempe the player. I'm concerned with Rempe the reputation. And I also have to say, Mike, thank you for all the Patreon support and everything. Seriously, it does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
Yes. Shout out, Mike.
So it's a loaded question, because Rempe the player can be a liability because he doesn't know how to necessarily control his body with the hits, as we saw with the Siegenthaler elbow, which was, everyone's writing this off as an elbow, but if you look at the whole play, Rempe catches himself on the board, so he was falling down, and it just so happens when a legal giant falls down, he's going to elbow somebody in the face. Unfortunate, deserved the suspension, deserved the major, all that. That happened. He deserved the penalty against Trevor Van Riemsdyk. That was a late hit. But these people saying that he deliberately went out there and broke TJ Oshie's hand, which is just fucking stupid. Just enough with that. He's a good player. He's got great hockey sense, but his reputation needs to be repaired for him to not be a liability. I still think he should come out in game 1. I still think if Hedl is ready, I think Rempe should be the one to come out. And again, not anything because of Rempe. It's because of the reputation right now.
I'll just quickly reiterate what I said before. I think Rempe does instill some form of a scare into the defenseman, regardless of who he is playing against. I'm not saying that he's a superstar by any means, but a lot of the points that you guys touch on are correct, and that he's a little reckless in trying to get back to where he can be. And he's still trying to figure out what to do with his body size, because you can only imagine the guy's 6'8", and everybody else is basically almost a foot smaller than him. So every hit that he delivers is going to be a big one. So he has to learn how to navigate that, even though most of the stuff he's done lately has been clean. I'll stick to my guns and I'll say he's going to be there until game 4. We'll just have to see how game 1 goes. Something in me tells me that Laviolette would probably scratch Jimmy Vesey before Rempe, but then again, I could be wrong. But I think he can have an impact at some point. It just all depends on how he's able to handle, a quicker, Carolina team.
Yeah, for sure.
Emphasis on quicker. It's not just they're faster than Washington. Carolina is one of the fastest teams in the league because they have the speed, the individual speed, and they have the team speed. They play fast. That's the difference maker.
Well, they're the best, to use a very kind of deep coaching term, but you see this on, if you follow, and Valley uses this kind of terminology, but they are like probably the best. Like the coaches will talk about 5 in the picture, right? So like when you're looking at an overhead view of the ice, you basically want all 5 guys in the same zone at the same time, right? Like, because that's how you create pressure on the puck. That's how you support the puck. That's how you give your teammates offensive options, right? It's something my men's league team does horribly. Like I play defense and then I get the puck and I look up and nobody's near me because they're all flying the zone. So it's Carolina, like they move as a unit really well. It's 5 in the picture all the time. They move the puck quickly. It's a lot of dump and chase, but they're not dumping to empty space. They are dumping to an area where they know their guy's going to get there first. They're extremely well coached. We know this about them and Brind'Amour and the whole thing, the way they play. So to your point, Dave, can Rempe handle that? He has not played against this team. It's a brand new opponent for him. So will be interesting to see how they handle it. All right, guys, been a great show. We had amazing questions. Thanks to everyone who sent those in. Before we go, let's do predictions because this is a preview podcast and you cannot end a preview podcast without predictions. So JL, I'll go first to you. What is your prediction for the series?
I think it's going to be Rangers in 7. This is going to be the series that's going to get, wring the most out of them, I think. And I think the Rangers have slightly more top end skill, and with the better goaltender, I think they pull this out in 7.
It was your turn to steal my thoughts because I could not think of it, put it any better. I think it's not only going to be the series that rings the most out of the team. It's going to be the series that rings the most out of the fan base. I think we are all going to have less hair, gray hair, more wrinkles, whatever. We're all going to age more than the 2 weeks it takes to play the series. Watching these hockey games, I think it's going to be, from a neutral standpoint, a great series because it's, for my money, and you've said, Dave, 2 of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. It's going to be fast, physical. The games are going to be close. There's probably going to be a couple of overtime games. I think they get it done at the Garden in a low scoring game 7, 2-1, 3-2, something like that. Like this series we saw the Rangers win in 2012, 2014, 2015 when they were making those runs.
So I am torn on Rangers in 5 or Rangers in 6. And hear me out. I believe when Laviolette has last change, he has a significant advantage. And he's probably the only coach that we've had that can challenge the Brind'Amours, the Coopers, the Bednars. So I want to say Rangers win the first 2 at the Garden. They drop the first one in Carolina. They respond nicely and they close it out in 5. But let's go with conservative Rangers in 6. And we will see Philip Hedl be a difference maker in this series.
I love it. Those are great predictions, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I, we'll have full second round predictions for the rest of the league on the blog as well. So please be on the lookout for that. Guys, this has been fun. I missed it dearly. I'm so glad I'm back. And look forward to doing it again next week when we will have at least a couple of games to talk about. This series I think is going to start on Sunday is the most
Sunday.
likely. Yeah, it should be Sunday. I don't think we have a time yet, but start making plans for a Sunday game 1 at Madison Square Garden, and hopefully followed by a Knicks game 1 on Monday if they can, stop the bleeding against the 76ers after that absolutely gut-wrenching loss on Tuesday night. Yeah, that was nuts. But I will direct you to a great basketball podcast called Nick Film School if you want to listen to some more detail about that. They're great. With that, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.